Right now, somewhere near you, someone with serious money might be standing in an ordinary checkout line wearing a plain jacket, and nobody notices. Today, I'm showing you the 10 small details that quietly give away real money. None of them are loud, none of them can be faked for long, and by the end of this video, you'll start reading people completely differently. When I study people's money habits, these are the details that get missed the most. And today I'm showing you exactly where to look. From what their bodies do when money comes up, to the car in the garage, to how they react to a surprise bill, I'm going to walk you through all 10 quiet signals one by one. Hi, I'm Olivia. For most of our lives, we've been trained to read money from loud things: the new car in the driveway, the logo stitched across the chest, the watch that catches the light. Our brains see those and quietly invent a story they say rich. The problem is, that story is wrong far more often than it's right. So let's look at the real signals. The first thing I noticed is something you feel more than see. When the bill lands on the table, when a price is said out loud, when someone mentions a big purchase, most people show a small flicker of tension, a held breath, a quick change of subject, that small smile that never quite reaches the eyes. Real money doesn't flinch. There's an unshowy calm to it, a comfort that isn't performing for anyone, and that calm has a very specific source. According to a 2025 survey from Northwestern Mutual, 88% of millionaires say they know exactly what they're spending and exactly what they're able to save right now. Among the general public, that number is only 68%. The same survey found that 76% of wealthy respondents see themselves as disciplined financial planners, compared to just 49% of everyone else. That whole feeling comes from that gap. Once you know your numbers by heart, money stops being a threat that can jump out at you from around the corner. This signal isn't confidence exactly, it's the absence of anxiety. And once you learn to feel it, you start noticing it within seconds. Anyone can fake calm for a photo. Quietly wealthy people carry it for real because there's nothing about their money waiting to be exposed. Then there's the car in the garage and how long it's been there. We've been trained to read an expensive car as a sign of money, and sometimes that's true. But far more often, the flashiest car on the street is leased or financed, quietly draining the person behind the wheel. Quietly wealthy people usually do the opposite. A reliable, ordinary Toyota or Honda paid off years ago, kept long after their neighbors have already traded up. The car is deliberately boring. Every dollar that doesn't go toward a status vehicle goes somewhere their neighbors will never see, quietly compounding in investments in the background. There's an old saying about this: the person with the shiny new lease is usually making the finance company rich, while the person in the 10-year-old sedan is quietly making themselves rich. Listen to how they talk about their car, too. Ask, and you'll usually get a shrug and one sentence. It still runs fine. Why would I change it? That answer, with zero shame in it, tells you far more than any badge on the hood. Next time you see a well maintained but modest car that's been in the same hands for a decade, don't assume the owner can't afford better. More often than not, that plain car is part of exactly where their real strength comes from. The third signal is hiding in clothes with no logo on them. There's one version of dressing that shouts, covered in recognizable brands, announcing to the room exactly how much the outfit cost. And there's a whispering version, a coat that sits perfectly on the shoulders, quality fabric that drapes the right way, shoes resoled instead of replaced. None of it announcing a single brand name. People now call this quiet luxury or stealth wealth, but it's really just old money behavior that never went out of style. The idea underneath it is simple: buy things that are well made, buy them once, let them last for years. A plain cashmere sweater with no logo at all can cost far more than a stack of branded hoodies, and only the person wearing it knows that. As a financial advisor, I once heard put it, you can never really know what someone is worth until you look under the hood, because their real money lives in places no outfit will ever show. The pattern worth remembering is this: a flashy logo is very often something bought on credit. Quiet quality is usually something bought once and then forgotten about. You can catch it in the smallest details too. A watch that runs perfectly and gets repaired instead of replaced. A bag that's aged in a way that looks better than new. These things were chosen once carefully and then quietly trusted for a decade or more. The fourth signal sits right at the checkout counter, and almost nobody thinks to look there: how they pay. Someone with real money almost always pays the balance in full, never carries a rolling debt, and treats a credit card as a tool that works for them, not a rope that slowly tightens. They happily use a simple cashback card, get a few $100s back a year on spending they were going to do anyway, and clear the statement to zero every single month. Their credit scores tend to sit near the very top as a quiet side effect of that habit. For context, the average American credit score in 2026 sits around 715, and only about 24% of people reach that top, exceptional tier. Compare that to the bigger picture. Americans currently carry roughly $1.25 trillion in credit card debt, most of it quietly eaten away by interest that drains a household from the inside. The wealthy person sits at the exact opposite end of that equation, collecting the rewards without ever paying the interest. And you only catch it when you notice how completely relaxed they are when the bill arrives. There's a deeper rule underneath it. They almost never finance something that loses value. A depreciating item bought on credit is a quiet, double loss, and they know it instinctively. The phone, the couch, the vacation, all of it gets paid up front or waited on patiently until it can be. The fifth signal is how they react to a surprise expense. The transmission fails or the water heater dies in the middle of winter, and suddenly there's a $1,000 bill nobody planned for. For most people, that's a real small crisis. According to research from Bankrate, 59% of Americans can't cover a $1,000 emergency directly from savings. Even more striking, nearly 29% of Americans currently carry more credit card debt than emergency savings, meaning a single bad week can push them straight into the red. Real money reacts to that same bill with almost a shrug. The repair gets handled, the money quietly comes out of a fund that exists for exactly this purpose, and life continues without a single dramatic phone call. That fund is treated as almost sacred, refilled the moment it's touched, never spent on a want. The calm you're seeing isn't a personality trait someone was born with, it's something deliberately built. The signal here is exactly that shrug. If someone doesn't even blink when a surprise bill shows up, you're looking at someone whose financial foundation was laid down a very long time ago. The sixth signal is whether their life gets louder. As their income grows, there's a pattern that separates quietly wealthy people from people who simply earn a lot. Most people, when they get a raise, have their spending catch up to it within the same week. A bigger apartment, a nicer lease, a heavier list of monthly obligations. The raise disappears into a lifestyle that deliberately expands to swallow it. Planners call this lifestyle inflation, and it's the quiet reason so many high earners still feel broke. Quietly wealthy people break that cycle deliberately over and over. When the raise comes, their day to day life looks almost identical to the month before. Their home stays the same, their weekly habits barely shift. The difference, often the entire raise, gets routed straight into investments before it ever settles into becoming a new expense. Right now, the people quietly crossing $1 million in retirement savings are averaging 59 years old and have stuck with the same plan for around 26 years. Many of them never earning more than $150,000 in any single year. They didn't out earn everyone around them, they simply refused for decades to let their spending chase their income. The seventh signal is how little they rely on willpower. As someone genuinely wealthy, how they stay so disciplined with money, and you'll usually get a puzzled look back because discipline isn't actually doing the heavy lifting. They design their money so the right decisions happen quietly on their own, whether they feel motivated or not. The moment a paycheck lands, an automatic transfer into investments fires before the money is even visible in the account. The retirement account fills itself. The bills pay themselves. Whatever's left in the checking account is, by careful design, the only money they're actually free to spend. Research from Vanguard and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau found that automating contributions increases long term savings rates by more than 40%. That's the quiet mechanism underneath all that apparent self control. The mindset shift is a big one. They stop asking, how do I force myself to be more disciplined? And start asking, how do I build a system that decides for me while I'm asleep? This signal is that they almost never brag about their discipline. Most of the time, they don't even see themselves as disciplined because the hard work happening quietly every day isn't willpower, it's the system. The eighth signal is what they talk about when they talk about what they want. Sit with someone who has real money, and once they stop being guarded, notice the shape of their dreams. They usually aren't fixated on things, instead, they talk about time, the freedom to say no to a job they don't want, the ability to walk away from a bad boss or a bad deal without feeling their chest tighten, a slow weekday morning where they don't have to be anywhere. Wealth in the end isn't having a big pile of money, it's having a big pile of options. Quietly wealthy people understood that difference long before the money arrived. If you listen closely, you'll hear it in small phrases. They talk about flexibility, about never feeling trapped, about having options the people around them don't have. When someone keeps circling back to freedom and time, not possessions, not status, not appearances, you're hearing the voice of someone who already understands what money is actually for. The ninth signal is how they give. Real wealth often tries to stay hidden, even at its most visible moment. Quietly wealthy people tend to be quietly generous. They pay the bill with no display at all. They pull a family member out of a hard situation and never bring it up again. Money goes toward causes they believe in without needing their name on a plaque, a program, or a post. There's no performance in it, no score being kept, just a steadiness that comes from genuinely knowing they have enough and knowing that giving some of it away won't shake the ground underneath them. If you notice someone helping others in ways they never wanted you to see, look closely. Generosity that expects nothing in return is one of the truest and rarest signs that a person feels deeply secure in what they have. And the 10th signal, the deepest one of all, they know their numbers by heart. Ask someone with real money where they stand financially, and they can tell you right there without scrambling roughly what they're worth, how much they're saving each month, an honest guess at what next year will look like. Those numbers live in their head because they check them calmly and regularly, the same way you'd glance outside before choosing a jacket. This one detail quietly reinforces every other signal on this list. The calm in the first one comes from these numbers. The shrug at the surprise bill comes from these numbers too. Most people do the opposite, avoiding their own finances because looking feels frightening, and not knowing slowly turns into a quiet weight they carry everywhere. The wealthy person looked anyway and kept looking until the fear wore off completely and clarity took its place. That's the real luxury here, worth more than the car, the watch, or anything with a logo stitched onto it. And it's the one thing on this entire list you can start building this afternoon before you earn a single extra dollar. You can start this week with one piece of paper and one honest hour. Write down what you own, subtract what you owe, and sit with that number, whatever it turns out to be. That first look isn't easy, but it's exactly the door every calm thing on this list walks through. Real wealth was never about the loud things. It was the calm, the paid off car, the quality with no logo, the quiet fun that turns a crisis into a shrug, the raise that becomes an investment, the automation running in the background, the freedom, the generosity that's never announced, and above everything, the clear eyed knowledge of exactly where you stand. The median net worth in America is around $193,000, which means half the country is building it from the middle, quietly, one plain habit at a time, exactly like you can too. Wealth built quietly is still real wealth, and quiet was never the same thing as slow. Which of these 10 signs did you just recognize in someone you know or in yourself? Has there ever been a moment you got it completely wrong about how much money someone actually had? If you're already building one of these habits, tell me in the comments which one you started with. I look forward to your questions in the comments. I read every single one of them. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. See you in the next video.